There it is, Mr. Danny.
Well, howdy, y'all. I am Danny Bombay. I am one half of the Market Fire podcast. We are live today post election, and this isn't a political show, but I just want to congratulate everybody who is on that client list that's never going to be publicly exposed for winning their seats. I hope your chosen candidate lost. I hate all of you.
Well, hey, you know what? We're all here, still here today. So that is, post-election, we're all still here.
Yep.
America's still here. We're all still here. So we'll figure a way through like we've always done. But that's just my opinion. Danny
Right.
hates all of them, but me, we're gonna work our way
Yes.
through, folks. We're gonna work our way through.
And yeah, and state of Texas, we all knew that he was going to roll away with that one.
We're not a political show.
Hey.
No, absolutely not.
No,
Get
we're
out
not.
of here. Anyway, so what are we talking about today, Danny? We got some stuff to talk about.
I want to do a rundown like we used to do back in the day. We're going to talk about Meta laying off more employees than Elon, and no one cares. Someone scammed Apple out of $17 million. I think they deserved it.
No.
My best friend, Sam Bankman-Fried, oopsie daisy, not quite the billionaire we all thought he was going to be. Also, my friends over at Carvana, oops, the stock is so low, it's not even funny. 98%,
Yeah, right.
Is America running out of diesel? We're going to find out.
It's not, but yeah, go ahead.
And then the largest Powerball in American history.
Woo.
And it got delayed by a couple of hours. So we're going to talk about that.
Well, good for them.
Yeah. So let's just jump into this first story.
Well, so we've got business, we've got layoffs, we've got money going places, conspiracy theories. So this is all for you, Danny. This is like a Danny show. Like, this should definitely be a Danny show. And speaking of Danny show, Danny and I learned something from the audience. As you know, we not only do this live, but we also put out on our All Pod Media, which is our umbrella company, our growing umbrella podcast company, right? We've got 2 shows currently, and we're growing. But so we have a channel, if you don't know, called All Pod Media Cuts, where we make shorts, where we make TikToks and stuff like that, and clips, and put them out.
They're not TikToks.
Well, okay, we're also putting those clips on TikTok. How about that? All right? Okay.
Fine.
So, anyway, the point is we've been doing testing of different, stories and different things like that. What we learned this past week is our best short that did well this week, all me. Danny didn't say a word during the short. So I think what we can glean from that is more of me, a lot less of Danny. Like, that's...
Okay.
I think that's what we can learn, Danny. What do you think?
I feel like the guy wearing the cowboy hat is saying some weird stuff to the brown guy, and we'll see how that all works out.
I'd say it to you, brown or otherwise, brother. Yeah, brown or otherwise.
This is... Anyway, I'm not going to go there.
Remember, we're live, Danny. We're live. We're live. We're okay. All right. Yeah. So, I'm sorry. What was our first story? Remind me.
So this first story is Mark Zuckerstad is laying off 11,000.
That's an inside joke, folks. I giggle because Danny has the inability to call Mark Zuckerberg. He consistently,
I don't have the inability.
Like it's Roland Gardner from the old movie. Roland Gardner, get out there, whatever, right?
Yeah. I don't lack the ability to say Mark Zuckerberg. I just declined to do it. You have to earn your name. He didn't earn it.
So the story in this case is Mark Zuckerberg is now currently laying off 11,000 employees, about 13% of Meta staff, right? Facebook staff, Meta staff. Yeah. Now, Danny finds this funny. Look, I brought this to Danny because I find it absolutely, whether it's hilarious or I don't know why, but for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month now, we've been talking about Elon Musk, and Elon Musk has now fired about 50% of Twitter, right? About 3,700 employees, give or take, right?
Right.
And Meta, on the other hand, is currently laying off 11,000, almost 300% of what Elon Musk is. And I had to search for this story because I'd read about it somewhere else. I don't understand why Meta laying off 13%. Now it's only 13% versus 50. I get that that's a different number, but that's still almost 300
That's
the amount of people. 300% the amount of people.
yeah, that's almost irrelevant to me. I was telling you this in our pre-show conversation. I was like, I've seen these TikToks. I don't actually have TikTok, but you see them on Reels and other
Mm-hmm.
places on YouTube Shorts, and you see these, these. It's always girls, just happens to be.
It's not,
I'm
but
just
go ahead.
saying, it's always women, and it's always this voiced over. It's the do 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 do, and they're always like, "Follow me to my full day of work at Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever," and they proceed to go like 90% of their day is like eating out of the cafeteria or their cafe and like taking a break, going outside, whatever, taking a walk for your mental
Uh-huh.
health. And then 9% of it is I attended a meeting, and then 1% of it is I sent an email. And then you go, this individual, man, woman, or otherwise, is getting 300 to $500,000 annually in total compensation. And then they're like, I can't believe I got fired after I spent like you spent 4 years not doing a real job. And when you said something to me personally, like reality bites hard.
It does.
You know what I'm saying? And when it's and you're also saying like this tends to be true that states, counties, and cities
Mm-hmm.
give tax breaks and other financial incentives to corporations, to mega corporations that are operating and doing business and hiring people because they're saying, okay, if the county, city, whatever
Right.
invests, it's one of those things where you go, well, you stole the money first, so how are you? But
Okay,
it's
taxes
neither
aren't
here nor there,
theft. That's a whole Danny thing.
right? Yeah, but that's a Danny thing. So I mean, I have to say that, otherwise, what are we doing here?
Right, sure.
Um, so when I somebody who is a strict free market person, and when somebody who is not conflates that behavior of government investment, and they're like, see, this capitalism doesn't work. And I go, that isn't capitalism. That is the opposite of capitalism, where the government is running around handing out incentives. So of course, if you're in San Francisco, it's harder to compete with huge companies like Facebook and Twitter because they're getting incentives you aren't. Um, and when a company can, for instance, get a bunch of money like a PPP loan, and they get a bunch of money and then it's forgiven, it's easy to hire people who don't actually do anything, who don't offer anything to increase the bottom line. It's just nice to have a full salaried person around to pick up a handful of tasks because you got the money for free. You don't have to worry about this thing called being profitable.
Okay,
So
I do not hold the cynicism in that statement that Danny
I,
does.
I'm
I'm
not
not
cynical.
necessarily
I'm not
saying it's
cynical.
not true. All right, what you're saying is partially true, and I understand the way you think, and there's a lot of people that agree with you. However,
Right.
getting a company to move to an area so that that area can grow and people are going to move there for those jobs and that kind of stuff is real. So it has providing that opportunity to your community is a good thing. Now, what happens
Right. And the
though?
way you provide that, this is a political statement, but not a political show.
Sure,
The way you provide that is by a low level floor, an even playing field, which
that's
is
just not true. That's not true. It's just
right, right,
go
where there
ahead.
are no restrictions, no regulations, and
Mm-mm.
no taxes, because that becomes the attractive thing. And then you build real organic businesses, not this fake nonsense where it's like, oh, Samsung's going to build us a battery factory, so the county's going to drop $100 million. But if you and I say we're starting a battery factory, it's like, well, the EPA is never going to let us open.
Right. Well, and you don't get the even half of that $100 million or whatever it would be.
Not even
Look, so all of that I agree with. However, it's
right,
not the way the world works. I would agree with you if it was a perfect world, but it's not. This is the world we live in. But what that does lead to, or can lead to, like we all know when we're talking about government funding or discounts and stuff like that, is those aren't easily flexible. Meaning that if the
Right.
market turns 2 years after that, right,
Right.
the company is still bound by these, county and state and all these things they signed off for these fundings and stuff like that. Now there's
Right.
loopholes and all this stuff, and this is not the only
Of course.
reason that Meta is laying off 11,000 people. Look, businesses ebb and flow as always, and for different reasons. If you are hiring and growing, it looks great to investors. It looks when you're
Right.
trying to get funding or trying to raise money, you want to show growth. One of the easiest ways to do that is by hiring employees, right? To
Right.
show growth. The problem is your shareholders on the other side of it completely opposite, right? This will gain ultimately Meta more money because
Right.
that all firing people goes straight to the bottom line, folks. It's
Of
just
course.
that's business. If I'm $100,000 from making my budget for the quarter, I fire two $50,000 a year jobs, and it automatically goes to my bottom line. That's the way this stuff works. So Meta has wasted, and I say wasted, they've invested billions of dollars in this metaverse, right? The Web
Right.
3.0 metaverse, virtual reality, and right now that is a deep dark pit of death.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying, but I understand Mark's position here, and that is if we're not Web3, we're not positioned for Web3, our operation's kind of doomed. And in many ways, like Facebook is responsible for like the concept of going to live in the internet, which isn't the entirety of what Web3 is. We don't even know what
Sure,
Web3 is yet,
correct. We don't
right?
know
That's
the
the thing.
entire platform of what that will
We
be.
we don't know what Web3 is going to be yet. It's still a fetus. We don't know if it's a boy or
Mm-hmm.
girl. Those are the only choices. So we're going to find out, but it's still gestating. We're still in that
Correct.
gestational, like we're finding out what this thing's going to be. And
I think it's
there
more
is
going to
this,
be more augmented reality than virtual reality, where Meta's idea, Mark Zuckerberg's idea, is virtual reality, not augmented
yeah,
reality. So,
but like they created this opportunity. They carved out a market in social
mm-hmm.
media, and he's trying to do this thing that I would say is very similar to the famed Japanese investor Masayoshi Son, um, where he just says, "I have billions of dollars,
Right.
so I'm going to outspend my competitors," and that has been an effective strategy for him, for Masayoshi Son, several times. However, it's also how you lose billions and billions and billions of dollars because you outspend and then you find out, hey, like you can spend $1 billion trying to build something, but if there's no customer for it, it doesn't matter.
Well, but
If
it's also
if
where is that money coming from? He spent billions of
Right,
Meta's money, not his money.
yeah,
He spent
correct,
almost, I think it's between $10 and $13 billion that he's thrown into this black hole of death and not gotten any sort of return, including, look, there was an article
right,
that came out a week and a half ago saying that even their internal staff wasn't using this. Like the people that are supposed to be working this weren't working in this. They were working on this. Does that make sense?
right,
So his own
totally,
staff was not using the product to work like they were supposed to be working, right? And once he found out that, because one of these is he's trying to promote this as a way for companies. When you talk about enterprise versus, what do you call it? Enterprise versus normal people,
like
right? Normal people use,
yeah,
right? Enterprise is business use. One of the things he's saying behind closed doors, and it's come out a couple of times, is he's telling enterprise, hey, if we move to this virtual office, virtual reality environment, we can
right,
automatically know when people are working. We can get every
right,
stroke on the computer, everything that their eyes are
right.
looking at, everything that they're moving to. So he's already behind closed doors told enterprise, hey, you want to know if your employees are working from home? I can tell you if your employees are working from home.
Right. And that strategy is, it seems genius. Um And what he's always been selling is tracking. That's always been the business
Correct.
model.
Data, right? Data is
Yeah,
everything.
data and tracking have always been the business model. Um, where that has applied to the pedestrian general population, he is now saying we can advance this technology to the point where it's going to benefit enterprise.
Correct. And look, it's
Now,
all of this is to say that he spent too much money. Now his investors and shareholders are both going,
right,
you've spent a lot of money in the last, well, really 2 years. What are you going to
right,
do to offset it? And he's going, well, okay, I'm going to fire 10, 13% of my staff. That's going to go straight to the bottom line. That's going to be enough to make my investors and my shareholders happy enough to offset some of
right,
these billions of dollars, and then I'm going to move forward.
right. And this is kind of the curse of great success in many ways. And Silicon Valley learned this lesson with Apple and Steve Jobs. They when you here's the thing though. I'm not saying Mark Zuckerman is a visionary in the vein of a Steve Jobs.
Right.
I'm just saying you can't, like, this guy has a vision. He got you this far, and to scared money. You're somebody who says this a lot, and I learned it from you.
Mm-hmm.
Scared money never made a dollar.
Correct.
Here's the thing: if like you look at Microsoft, Microsoft's an interesting example. They burned hundreds of billions of dollars to find the correct
Mm-hmm.
device strategy. They burned like hundreds of billions of dollars. Well, here's the thing: it took 10 years to build this device strategy that is now like the surface line of products. Is like, no, people use these and they're paying thousands of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
$2,500. You can go and it's like they're building the $2,500 for a Surface Pro 9 with all the stuff in it, but people are buying it.
Everybody uses a Microsoft
So
product, whether it's at work or at home. Even if you're a Mac
right,
person at home, you're using a computer for work that is not a Mac. It's a Microsoft product in some
right,
fashion or form. Look, and this, by the way, the thing that's missing out of all these articles is, guess what? Mark Zuckerberg's not going to stop spending. In none of this
no,
does it
he's
say,
gonna keep doing
"Hey,
it.
I'm going to stop investing into this dark hole."
Right,
It's, I'm doing this to satisfy you, the leaner, meaner approach, right? That
right,
every company that's laying off people ever goes, oh, we're just
right,
getting leaner and meaner. We're going to put out the same product with
right,
less people. No, he's still going to be shoveling billions of dollars down this technology. He believes in it.
right.
He's put his name on it at this point. It would take a complete disaster for Mark Zuckerberg and Meta, by the way, to change course on this product.
Yeah, here's the so that I was rounding it out all to say exactly that. I don't view a future. I don't predict a future. I'm saying Mark is going to spend 250, 250 Bs on this.
Oh, you think so?
I think because I don't. Here's the thing. I think that we're what 10 or 13. How many billions are we in? 10 or 13
13,
billion, something like that.
somewhere between 10 and 13.
Yeah, we're 13 Bs into it. I think he has to pivot. I don't think the enterprise strategy is going to function because I think this is one scenario in which it gets a little too dystopian where workers are going, I don't, because I'll say this much about family that I have that have regular traditional
Mm-hmm.
working arrangements, but they work from home. Um, they don't like they're not interested. Like they will quit over like they have the leverage.
Right.
The workers have leverage at the moment based on the current market conditions. So if you start doing all this weird tracking stuff, I think it has a negative effect. I think it causes workers to figure out how to get around it, and you're wasting people's time because they're frustrated with how much you're tracking them,
Mm-hmm.
that they're not productive. You're not going to see an increase in productivity. You're just going to see an increase in animosity. So you don't want that. So
Unhappy
I think
workforce.
enterprise, right? And I think that the Great Resignation. A lot of people are going back to their jobs, but I don't think that you're going to force people back into their office. And I do think this hobbled together solution. We mentioned Microsoft. I think that like you're just having teams meetings, but if you say you're going to go work entirely in the metaverse, I think there's still enough boomers in the economy. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be 51% of the workforce
No.
that 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 it just has to be an irritated 5% that say if you do this, and we've seen this throughout. This is in
Hmm.
more government things where it's like, if you make me show my card because I got the medicine, so you're going to make me show a card,
Right.
screw you. So I'm just saying, like, I think
You're
listen,
right.
this might work. This may work in a country like Japan or China, right? And that may be enough of a market, or even Europe, parts of like Western and Eastern
Where
Europe,
they
or
don't have
Western
the
Europe,
employee, not
freedom, and they
independence,
don't.
freedom, the employee freedoms that, hey, this would be
No,
normal.
it's
Here's a new product for you to use, right? And
yeah,
here's how you're going to
just
use it, and there's no questions.
right. Yeah, and I would say that part of it is simply in the West there is more of a we're cowboys out here. We're a little bit like
Hmm.
I think that, and I appreciate that. 97% of the reason I moved to Texas over other states, I would have maybe preferred to live in Las Vegas, or I mean Florida was out from the off rip because I don't swim like that.
Well, I sent you
But
an
the reason,
article, what, a week and a half ago, of a study that's shown that all of these companies that have forced their workers back to the workplace, and
yeah,
their productivity has gone to the crapper. Like, it's just,
yeah,
it's hit, gone lowered, which I was hoping what was going to come out of the pandemic and the stuff like that afterwards was going to be a shift in how companies, instead of paying for time, paid for productivity, right? Like,
and
that's the way
yeah.
it
So
should
like
be.
there was Sean or Shan, it's Shan from My First Million, the podcast. He was tweeting, and I Mark if I replied to him. He was tweeting like, my company culture in our Slack kind of sucks. Like, what do you do to spice it up? And my response to that was, I long for a world. I'm not a workers' rights guy by any sense stretch of the
Right. You're not.
imagination.
You're
I'm
not.
a I'm not. But I'm a
Right.
libertarian, and I believe that if you're a worker and you don't like the conditions you're working in, you give them the middle finger and you go find better conditions.
Correct.
And in this life, there's this things called there's no solution, there's no perfection, there's just trade offs, and you start quickly realizing, all right, I mean, I can make 175 grand over here, but they're going to make me come to the office. Do I take lower compensation? Do I take 100 grand because they let me work from home and I
Hmm.
get to kick my feet up and it's more peaceful.
And if
And
enough
those
people
are the
make
trade
that
offs that
decision, the market turns, right? Like,
right. And so, but he was saying like, how do I spice this up in his clip? And I responded to a tweet saying, um, you don't like. I long for a world where or corporation goes, here's our corporate culture. I hate if there's one thing I despise, it's engagement culture of like we need to increase our engagement. I don't give a rip about your company at all.
right.
You have no loyalty to me. I have no loyalty to you.
Sure.
It's we're not married, okay? We're friends with benefits. That's it, right? The minute this the the minute this thing stops working,
That is a
it's over.
Dannyism. That is not a big man or market fire
Yeah,
podcast
but
ism. That is a
fine.
Dannyism.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, we aren't in a marriage. We're in a friends with benefits
Hmm.
situationship.
Situation, sure.
And so I long for the corporate culture. If I was a guy who wanted to build some big, massive corporation, this would be my corporate culture. I'm not that guy. I don't want to build that. I just want to make a ton of money and be an investor and live my life in peace. I don't want to answer to people. I don't want to deal with other people's problems. It's not that I don't want to deal with other people's problems. I think your problems are stupid and you cry too much about things. Everything hurts all the time. Life is garbage.
Look,
Learn to
work can be
learn to
fun.
surf it, baby.
Work can be fun.
Right.
Work families
But the
can
thing that
happen.
I'm
I,
right.
however, here's my problem with any of the we're a family around here or a work culture problem. My problem is that is not a reciprocal response from the company. The fact is the
Right.
company will lay you off anytime it's convenient. That's what
Right.
both of these stories, Elon Musk, Twitter,
Right.
with Twitter,
So
Meta, with Mark Zuckerberg, they have zero loyalty to you when it's
right
convenient for them. You should have the same amount of loyalty to your
to
company
them.
and the people around you.
So I think if a company went out there, and my view is it's going to be one of these like alternative platforms like a Rumble or something, they're going to embrace the mantra of, hey, you have a life, you have a family, you have friends, you have hobbies. Come here, perform, execute, get the frick out.
Right. No,
Don't want you
I
here.
wish that
Hey,
was the majority of workers.
right. And then, hey, productivity. Here's you hit these daily goals.
Mm-hmm.
This is how much productivity we need you to do. That's really easy to track. And here's the thing. You start saying, we're not going to track you. We're going to track your productivity. Don't care. All of a sudden, I don't care how much, what just, okay, because it makes me work so much more efficient and
Mm-hmm.
faster, right?
Because you want
If I'm like,
done. You want done with that
right,
today. And guess what?
right,
Most big companies, especially large companies and medium to large companies, already know
right,
this. There is a
right,
form that an egghead put together for you, right? That the bean counters put together for you. It goes to every CEO. It goes to everybody on the board. It even goes to stockholders in some cases. That says we have X number of employees. That leads to X number of productivity. That leads to X number of dollars. Every
right,
company has it. They know when they hire a new employee what that should mean in profit and viability. So we
right,
already have the back end data to go, hey, here's what I need for you for $100,000 paycheck I'm going to give you this year. Here's what I need
right,
today and tomorrow and somehow, some way, I don't know the history behind it. We traded hours for dollars instead of productivity for dollars, and I think it's
right.
horrible and we need to fix it. And you wouldn't see mass layoffs like this because you would be able to make the argument that by firing that person also means this lack of productivity.
Right. And here's the thing, there are different people, so there's different corporate cultures, and
Mm-hmm.
different things appeal to different people. There are people who like going to the office, and it's like, I'm coming here to, like, this is my jam.
Mm-hmm. And give
God
them a place
bless
to
you.
go. And give them a place to go.
God bless you. But me personally, I can get into the office, and like when I had a traditional 9 to 5 gig, I could do as much as they needed me to do in 4 hours, but I had to sit there for 8. And there were
Danny was a
some
quiet quitter.
times,
That's all I'm saying.
well, I'm not a quiet quitter.
So you
I
you
was,
belly ached about it a lot.
no, not really. I was just like, bye.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm just, so my view is that if you want, and here's the real thing, if
Mm-hmm.
Zuckersman's figured out how to go to those, because he already has a huge list of enterprise customers, and
Sure.
he said, here's the thing, we're going to create Meta for work. Google didn't start out by creating enterprise products,
Right.
but now they have Google Cloud, which is an enterprise
Mm-hmm.
business, and they're Indian. I mean, their CEO is my uncle, Indian guy, Thomas Kurian. Um, Kurian, before one of my cousins starts commenting like you pronounce it like a white person, but you know, um, hey, like Meta for work, Meta for business, Meta
Mm-hmm.
enterprise could easily um, build a product where they completely revolutionize how work tracking is done, because they already have all the sensors, they have everything, they already have the portfolio of people, product, and technology to build that. So instead
Right.
of building, hey, we're going to force your workers to plug their brain into the machine, and then we're going to track everything that they do, and every time they have a dirty thought or they laugh at an inappropriate joke, where like then you can fire them for cause. It's, we're going to create this, and they get to be the hero again
Right.
instead of being
No, I
the
get it.
villain of the story.
I get it. I get
Why are
it.
you laughing? What are you laughing at?
Because the way you think, Danny is one of those people that treats computers nice because he wants to be prepared for when the technology, artificial intelligence takes over the world. He wants them to know that Dr. Danny Bombay was on their side from the get. So
Yeah, no,
so
that is true.
so I I get it. It's Yeah, it's not everybody is out to get everybody. Anyway, so speaking of everybody not to get out of everybody, here's a guy that stole $17 million from Apple while working for Apple. So he not only stole $17 million, he was getting paid to steal $17 million.
Right.
Which is right up your alley, Danny. So tell us how he did it.
What's this guy's first name? I'm only seeing his last name. Prasad?
I'm going to mispronounce this. Yeah, Dharendra?
Dharendra.
Dharendra?
Prasad.
Yeah, there you go. I can't even say it. Dharendra.
Oh, this story just got even more interesting to me. One of my cousins stole $17 million.
Danny is not related to these people, folks. He just says.
I know. Yeah. He was taking kickbacks, inflating invoices, stealing parts, and causing Apple to pay for items and services that they never received. This kind of reminds me of that story of some guy in Eastern Europe. I forget where exactly. He just started sending invoices to companies. Like he would just send these multi-billion-dollar invoices or multi-million-dollar invoices to Google and Facebook. And like it was enough money to make a difference for him and enough money that it made it a significant enough crime. But it was a little enough that Google, Facebook, Apple, all these companies were like, whatever. It's we owe the guy $700,000, just pay it.
Right. So, this is mob mentality. Look, mobsters used to do stuff like this, right? Like, you know what I mean? I'm going to steal stuff from a truck, and then I'm going to put it over here in a warehouse, and I'm going to legally sell it from that warehouse to this business, and then that business is going to turn around and sell it for whatever they sell it for, right? This is old school mob mentality. This is a guy, and the only reason he only stole $17 million is because he probably started out pretty small for a while before he got really comfortable with it, but he was doing all the mob stuff. He figured out that he was in a position to or get things approved so easily that nobody was paying attention, right?
Right.
And then he strategically figured out, hey, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to negotiate with buyer A over here, but instead of selling it to Apple, I'm going to sell it to an entity that I own, and that entity is going to turn around and sell it to Apple at an inflated price and may not even have a warehouse in it. Like, I'm doing drop shipping. He's drop shipping to himself to Apple for a higher price than what he's paying, right?
And I think that is genius. How much cash reserves does Apple have at the moment? Now, I'm against stealing. I'm a free market guy, but this is how and people often ask this question to me, like, well, if there's no government, how do we handle crime? Apple just takes us one on the chin and go, hey, thanks for letting us know that we have some insecurity in our supply chain management that we need to rectify. They have $1 trillion plus in cash.
Yeah, it's an insane amount of cash. Like this is nothing. This is like $1.
So this is like they hired McKinsey and they paid McKinsey an engagement fee of $17 million. And they said, hey, you guys have an inefficiency or there's a lack of security in your supply chain management system. Here's how you shore that up. And this guy just did it. McKinsey would have charged them $25 million. This guy did it for 17. It's in-house. He promoted from within. I think this is great.
This guy's 52 years old, and he's going to end up going to prison for 15, 20 years, right? So is it worth $17 million to go to prison for 20 years? It's not for me, right? No. But this guy, it doesn't say in any of the articles I could find, like, how the entire... but I guarantee it was slow. It was something early where you got a kickback from a company that said, hey, we'll give you 10 grand, we'll give you 5 grand if you can get us above this other contract or whatever. And then it started with little stuff like that where he was getting kickbacks that he wasn't telling the company about. And then the next thing you know, he's like, why the hell am I just taking kickbacks? I can turn around and do what they're doing with the contacts that I've made, right? I can reach out to their supplier's supplier and do this stuff myself, and then that snowball just starts going, right?
Right.
You did it for 10 grand, then you do it for 30 grand, then you'll do it for 100 grand, and
so let me just say this as our country is having a conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're having conversations about representation. As a little Indian kid growing up, I never really had criminals to look up to, right? There was no one who looked like me doing crime. So it was really awesome to see guys like this doing crime because it gives little Indian kids hope that you can live in America. You don't have to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like this. You don't have to go buy a hotel or a convenience store. Okay, if you work hard and believe in yourself, you can do white collar crime.
Danny does not represent Market Fire Podcast or the big man in any of his current statements. All right, I have to say that several times in every show because Danny says crazy things like this is a guy to be looked up to. He is not.
I'm not saying he's a guy to be looked up to. That's not what I said. I said that we finally have a guy to look up to in the world of crime. Now, also to be entirely fair, Raj Rajaratnam, who maintains his innocence, technically Sri Lankan. People say I kind of look like him, especially now that he's got rid of his mustache. But he's Galleon Group. He made billions of dollars, and he did go to prison for a little eensy amount of time.
Yeah,
he paid a couple $100 million in fines, but he's still a billionaire. Okay, and as a consequence of that,
$17 million is not enough for 20 years of my life. That's not enough. No,
not at all.
Okay,
not in the slightest. Yeah, but that's that, and I'm just saying that it's unreasonable to me to have a conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion and representation, and not include some of those times where I felt like there was a lack of representation. Okay.
Well, this guy got caught. So that is not something you want to emulate, kids. If you're trying to find a villain superhero to model yourself after, regardless of race, because you can do that, regardless of race,
and you should.
Getting caught is not the one you want to emulate. You want to learn from their mistakes.
Of course not. But there was another guy that Matthew Martoma, who actually is he's not actually my cousin, but I'm pretty sure if I started making some phone calls, we'd find out that we are probably related because we are from the same region of the world.
What is that? We're 7 degrees from Kevin Bacon. Remember that old game, right? Yeah.
I just want to mention the reason I love his name is Matthew Martoma. The reason it's funny is he adopted. So what he did was he got kicked out of some elite university for cheating, and what he did was he changed his name from something unpronounceable, Matthew. It's a very common surname in India, South India, where my family's from. It's a common surname. He made that his first name, and then he adopted the name of a Christian denomination, Martoma, as his last name. And then he took his bachelor's degree and then applied to like Harvard or Penn State or something like another elite university because he got kicked out of law school for cheating, and then got an MBA. And I'm just saying, for young Indian kids like me who hated everything about our society, and I had to who was I looking to? 50 Cent? He doesn't look like me. He doesn't know what my life is like. But when I saw that guy go to jail, prison for a long time, and they took a bunch of his money, and I found out that there's a TV show called Billions on Showtime. It's on Amazon Prime now. What's fascinating is it's based on the firm that guy worked for, and they don't even have a single Indian guy ripping them off in that. I was like, I'm so pissed. He's one of the few white collar criminals. He's one of the few Indian guys to go to prison in America, and he doesn't. Yeah. But anyways,
no.
That has nothing to do with the story. That was a caveat, but that happens.
Well, but look again. This is a great example of how. We were just talking about employees and employees you can afford to get rid of. This happened because, at least in this division, in this office, in this middle management, whatever it was bloated because this guy was able to get away with no checks and balances whatsoever, whether from his superior, but because this went on for years. It's not something that happened over a weekend. This went on and was able to happen for years 17, and it took years for this guy to get caught, which probably he got caught like most criminals do in this kind of stuff, even the white collar. They either get too greedy or too lazy to do what they were supposed to be doing properly,
Right.
and they screw it over. And this guy does. This guy did, and now he's
Right.
getting caught.
And yeah, and that's, I would have roped in more people into it, and I would have had friends set up corporations, and I would have said, hey, we're all going to split the money, because that it creates a little more legitimacy when there's some extra people. And I had a professor of management at the University of Minnesota. It's not where I got my degree from, but he said, when your boat's sinking, you do everything you can to get everyone else in it with you. So
No, that's not a saying. And no, it should not be
well,
a saying. So speaking of horrible things that happen to wonderful people, our next story here is, what is it? Oh, Sam Bankman, Danny's friend of
yes,
a friend of a friend.
right.
All right, so what's the
Let
deal
me
with
tell you
Sam Bankman?
something. Big man's favorite thing. And when I say favorite thing, I mean like as much as I love good scams, this is up there. Like I wonder sometimes if it goes, he hates crypto, then loves his family. Because like big man's an amazing family man. He really is. He loves his kids. He does a lot for his boys, and I really respect him
I
for
do.
that. Like,
Thank you, sir.
uh, yeah, and I really respect you as a father and a husband. But he hates crypto so much because he thinks the whole thing is a scam. That's
it
fine.
is.
He gets to have that opinion. This is one of those things in our relationship. At some point in time, I had to go, I love you, brother. I really do. I don't care. Like you got to stop sending me
You
these
got to
crypto
stop sending me
scam
stories.
stories.
Yeah, sure. And I did.
Because
And I
and it's
did.
yeah, because he did. I'm just saying I don't care, right? Like it's fine that of course it's happening. I'm saying the entire fiat currency is a scam. So it's all a scam. I'm just saying we're all doing the same scam. But Sam Bankman-Fried he was temporarily a billionaire, and there's this infamous clip of Sam Bankman-Fried,
Not
and the
just a
interviewer
billionaire.
goes,
Not like just, okay, the guy's worth $1 billion. The guy
right,
at the height was worth $15 billion.
right, and it was one of those like, he made his initial hundreds of millions of dollars, um, very keenly realizing that he was looking at just Japanese crypto exchanges were paying more for Bitcoin than American exchanges. So all he did was he was buying it on the American exchange and
Sure.
selling it on the Japanese exchanges. And he just kept doing that until he had a couple $100 million.
He was,
And
look, there's people that play the currency markets, right? Currency exchange
yeah,
markets. So essentially
Forex,
that's all he was doing, right? He was playing a
right.
currency exchange market, right? And again, I have
Yeah,
Danny says I hate crypto and I think it's a scam. That's a nice umbrella term, and he's not completely wrong as an umbrella. However,
right.
I do not hate crypto. I do not think that it's a scam in the way that people go, oh well, concussion cream is not a scam. No, well, concussion cream's someone taking advantage of you. There's no such thing, right? Or what was the story we did? 5G lotion, right, to protect you
Yeah,
from 5G. Like that's a scam, right?
yeah,
I just say my issue with cryptocurrency as a whole, and it's Bitcoin all the way down to garlic coin, okay? And
right.
you know what I mean? Is the span of it is when you're dealing with things that are not backed by people, by assets, by companies, by
Right,
anything, you are
right,
putting yourself in a situation of high volatility, which
right,
can go to zero if any part of that process breaks down. And that's what we're having in this case. And the reason FTX is a company and him being the CEO, Sam Bankman, the problem is he's running into is the 1920s bank crash. It's called
right.
insolvency. It's, you know what I mean? When people go to the bank, and crypto as a whole, let's just call it as a whole right now, because people
Right.
listening to this that aren't familiar with crypto aren't going to get it if we don't keep it simple. Think of cryptocurrency as a whole as your dollars are there in the bank, cryptocurrency being the bank. And insolvency in this case is if I go to you, like in the 1920s bank boom bust, was I went to the bank and say, hey, I want my $500 back. And the bank looks at you and goes, we have 298.
Right.
Right?
And you're the 10th guy in line wanting his
Exactly. And
$500.
then everybody else behind you goes, wait a minute, you
Right.
can't give them their money. I want my money now. And so on and so
Right.
forth. And that's essentially what's happened to this company. It is essentially insolvent and is now being bought for pennies on the dollar of what it should be worth. So this guy
Right.
being look, these people are called, and we've had several of these over the last decade or so. What do they call them? Paper millionaires or paper what?
billionaires. Yeah.
Yeah, paper
Paper billionaires.
billionaires. Where okay, you're telling me you're worth $15 billion, but you have $150 in your bank account, right? Like,
Yeah, and that is a onset. That is a popular phenomenon caused by our system of regulation and taxes, where it's people inflating value, but not ever carrying any cash, not having. So the American system of taxation and regulation, what it ends up creating, instead of creating a fairer, freer system where it's where there's good oversight, what it ends up creating is inflationary cycles where these booms where there's nothing there, because the more they have actual cash on hand, because the minute you put that money into your
mm-hmm.
LLC that's American, or your S corp, whatever, taxes. So they're doing a circus. They're jumping over hoops. They're doing backflips to avoid that. In the process of doing that, they create these monstrosities based on fractional reserve debt and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find interesting about this guy was, in one of his interviews, the interview is like, you're not like other billionaires. You drive a Corolla and you live in an apartment. And he starts explaining all this stuff. And I go, yeah. My first thought was, something's wrong. There is something wrong with a billionaire that does not live like a billionaire.
Right.
He lives in a 2-bedroom apartment with 10 people, apparently. And
his favorite chair is like a beanbag chair. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's that guy, right? Beanbag chair, Toyota Corolla. Yeah.
Yeah. And the corporate press and the gal interviewing him are all, brainless NPCs. And so they're like, he's quirky and different. Nah, his whole thing is built on it's a house of cards. That's what it was. It wasn't, he's just a quirky individualist. No, his whole business is a scam. That's all. Look, that's all it was.
We're talking about this guy losing, and I think the actual number is 94% of his wealth, right. His paper wealth, 94%. But this guy's still worth almost $1 billion. He's still got hundreds of millions of dollars stashed somewhere. It's not going to affect his life. No. And the rest of his life, just like Mr. Ye, we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. Yes, he's no longer a billionaire, but it's not going to affect his day-to-day life. This guy's still going to live out the rest of his life, even if he never does anything else ever, off of what he did perfectly legally that had very little to do with crypto. Crypto was the product he created hundreds of millions of dollars from, but really it was money exchange, which has been around for 100 years, right?
Right. Yeah, and he created it in, some sort of offshore Caribbean exchange. And that's the part of the story that I love. Like, I love this whole story of it's a Mount Go type situation. If you don't know what that was, and Mount Go was an exchange that just overnight, when it disappeared, and took people's Bitcoin with it.
Right.
And that's when we learned the lesson of hard wallets all the time.
But imagine that. See, this is my point. Look, if you're one of the people watching this right now, or watching this on record, or I'm sure I'm going to splice this up and put it on TikTok and everywhere else. Look, if you're one of those people that want to come at me about how much money you've made or people have made at crypto, come at me, bro, because I will show you 10 to 1 how many people have lost their you-know-whats on the same product, just with different timing or whatever. The fact is that everybody was going to make crypto. If everybody was going to make rich by crypto, it would have happened already. It's not going to happen. So so go ahead and just come at me, bro. Come at me, bro.
Right. And that is such a interesting statement to make in a story about a quirky kid who's going to be a billionaire for the rest of his life because of crypto.
Not because of we've already established he didn't make his
No,
millions of dollars from
he
crypto. He made
he
it
made
from
his
currency exchanges. Crypto just
but
happened to be the product. It had nothing to do
crypto,
with how he
but
made his original money.
Bitcoin was the currency. Bitcoin was the currency.
It does no.
Yeah,
The
of course.
Japanese
Yeah,
exchange of Bitcoin was the
yeah.
currency.
So
That's what I'm
let's
saying.
just
All of
right.
these people that are quote unquote cryptocurrency billionaires or millionaires did not make it from crypto. They made it from
Right.
products associated with crypto.
Right. So this gets back to my initial point. Big man hates crypto so much.
I don't like people being taken advantage of, and people that don't do their research get involved and they lose their ass. And then we go, oh, well, that's the way it works.
No, that is though. Here's the thing. I don't believe that you can protect people from themselves. And here's how we know that doesn't work. There was a video that came out, a person, I should say, rather, put out a TikTok of how hard it was to work 8 hours a day at Starbucks. And that went viral and everybody's looking at it. And that is the downstream result of 3 or 4 generations of Americans trying to protect weak people from reality. Reality bites hard. And here's all that happens. We just have to let reality bite you in the ass a handful of times. And then you figure out, hey, I can't sit down. I better learn my lesson.
You would hope. See, you would hope. Because, see, look, I'm sitting here giggling because if you don't know that video of that poor 20-something-year-old that worked 2 days.
We have to say person.
2 days, person. That had to work 2 days in a row, 8 hours a day, and was just bawling. Just overwhelmed with the amount of work. Now, and I'm saying this, and it sounds like I'm trying to make fun of this person, and I'm really not. Life is about perspective. Maybe that 16 hours in 48 was too much for this person. All right, and I don't want to. And that, look, everybody's allowed to feel the way they feel. However, when you turn around and you put that out to the world, right, it goes viral because this person puts it out of their own decision. Like they decided to record themselves feeling that and put it out into the ether. The ether ate it up, right? You have to deal with the backlash of what that's going to cause from boomers, from Gen Xers, from other millennials, right? Gen Z. You're going to have to deal with that.
Right. And my thoughts were on that. You know, it's not in our show notes, but like life sucks. Like life is hard. And listen, if you're in that situation and it like you're hurting and it's 8 hours, listen, Starbucks is actually a great place to work if you're trying to start a business, if you're going to school, because they give you health care and they do all this other stuff. So it's actually like I know people who are like, I know moms. I know a couple of moms who are like, I love Starbucks because working there, it's like my husband owns a contracting company. He's a contractor. Sure. I go there, I work, and
it's 15, tough work.
20 hours.
And it's tough work. The people that we have to deal with or not we, but the people they have to deal with that work at Starbucks and these coffee shops have to deal. Now, it's not most people. I have a couple of Starbucks that I go to on a regular basis. I love Starbucks. Great coffee. My kids love Starbucks. It's not the greatest coffee, but it's good coffee and it's quick to get in and out of. They are quick with your coffee. Okay. My point though is the people that go there and the people that I interact with while I'm there, I would assume that 90% of people, just like 90% of most people, even retail, are good people. It's the 5 or 10% that ruin it, as we've all seen on stories and videos and everything else.
Right.
But even with good people, it's a hard work. Making coffee is hard work.
Listen, I'm not discounting. Listen, all work is hard when you don't want to do it.
Correct.
And that's fine. If you don't want to work hard, you just have to live with. There are times in my day, every day, where I go, I'm going to quit everything I'm doing, and I'm going to go drive a school bus, get a small apartment in Denton County, Texas, right? Get a small 1-bedroom in Denton County or Fort Worth somewhere.
Right.
And I'm just going to drive a school bus and not worry about any of this nonsense. But the problem with having goals is sometimes you have to bust your own. So you have to kick yourself in your own dick sometimes to get yourself motivated to do stuff. And that's just life. And
Right.
this person, it would appear from what I can gather, is working on entering into manhood. And good luck to them on that journey. And part of it is you got to kick yourself in your own dick, whether you were born with it or they surgically added it later. You're gonna have to do it. There's no. It's just it's hard, and that's life, though.
That's my belief. That is mine,
And
but it's not everybody's.
sure,
It's my belief,
you
but
know,
not everybody's. All right, our
right.
next story. Speaking of down by 90%, um, Carvana, which you and I have talked about on and off for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, and I think that if as All Pod Media continues to grow, and we're going to bring on a full time editor to
Mm-hmm.
manage editing all of our podcasts. Is one of the services we're going to offer. Is if you join our podcasting network, we're going to make the editor scrub all of our 75 episodes and pull out all of the Carvana stories, and just so we can watch the progression
Mm-hmm.
of them losing their license to sell cars in half a dozen states.
Yep.
There's a bunch of scams where they were like, the customer was the purchaser of the car was going to the state saying, it's kind of weird that they gave me a title from a different state, and they said give us like 60 more days, and they just kept giving them temp tags from other
From
states.
other
It was
states, from temp tags
yeah,
from other states, which I don't even know is completely legal anyway, right? Like,
no, it's not. That's how they ended up in
especially in
this
a place
problem.
like Texas, where Texas is very, hey, you've got 30 days when you move here to get your driver's license changed. They want up to
Yeah,
date
90. It's
information.
90. Yeah,
Whatever. My point is, you've got
yeah.
these finite timelines in places like
Well,
Texas and I'm sure other states
yeah.
that sending a tag from another state to someone in Texas is probably in a gray area at best.
Right. And we covered when they acquired one of Odessa, the car auction,
Yeah, the car
all this
auction,
other
because
stuff.
they wanted, the idea was to have more locations where they could put inventory to have more access to it around the country and stuff like that, maybe even
Right.
do some direct sales and that kind of stuff. But the big headline here is, at its peak, Carvana, because it's a publicly traded company, was about $360 a share. As of this
Right.
week, we are at $7 a share. So it's a grand total of down
Mm,
98% from its peak.
right.
So
Yeah.
if you invested
Some
$100 at its peak, you now have two
yeah.
bucks.
Somebody called Nick Lachey, 98, 98 degrees. Um, the thing that I love about this is the fact that they built these monstrosity, they call them car vending machines, and the way that non someone who's never purchased a car before, and like the first car they buy it from Tesla or something, they have no idea what it's like to go in and buy a car from a dealership. They're like, I'm just going to go there and put my credit card on the machine, it's going to drop a car down, and it's really not remotely how that's going to work.
But if you're
But
used cars and there's so many models and so many years, and so the vending machine, I don't know whose dumb idea what that was. It was probably put out there to Carvana as a marketing stunt, 100%.
100%.
Because if
No, I'll tell you what
Tesla
that
had
is.
a vending machine, that would make sense. Like, I'm only
Yeah.
carrying Tesla, Model X in here. That's it. That's what this
Right.
entire
Yeah.
vending machine is. It's just Tesla. Now that makes sense to me. But used cars, there's
Yeah.
too many.
Well, I'll tell you, like, so the father owned, so this is a father son operation. The father is a convicted felon, and he was convicted of, I don't remember, something to do with this company called Drive Time, which is a large kind of CarMaxy type competitor.
Yeah.
And so I don't know the true genesis of this. This is just me thinking about how you get there. And he's going, look at the dad, I'm guessing, is going, look at all of these tech stocks. And it's like, all of these normal companies, it's like, oh no, we're not a bank, we're fintech, we're financial technology, and everyone's like, here's $1 bajillion, and he's thinking, hey, if we call ourselves a technology company
Right.
that sells cars, but instead of buying a car lot, and guess what, land isn't cheap, and
Right.
cars aren't small, so he's going, if I just go get some Park Plus or these lifts, these huge lifts that are used in highly condensed cities like New York, Tokyo, London, they have these massive car lifts. And he starts going, if we just you'd buy a little, or instead of needing 20 or 30 acres to build a massive CarMax, I just need 5 acres, and I can build this thing that this
Mm-hmm.
um, thing that people are going to come look at, this a spectacle. I can go public, and this is one of those tricks of stocks and being a publicly traded company, is that
The emotion,
people
the
are
idea of something, because we talk about all the time
right.
in publicly traded companies that the stock is like Vegas, right? It's emotional. It,
It's a
it doesn't
casino, baby.
always necessarily make sense. And you're right, it could have been part of that Carvana marketing and ahead of time. I just think obviously they'd make more money. Like there's one here in South Austin. They'd make more money. Carvana would make a crap ton of money instead of having used cars in it. Turn it into a parking lot that you pay by the hour or pay by the day for.
Yeah,
They would make a crap ton of
right.
money just doing that, but they're not gonna. What's gonna end up happening is they're gonna end up being bankrupt. Their sales are already down. Their customer service is down. Every part of their business is down. They can't, like you said, they've already been forced to stop work in a dozen different states. That's going to continue as issues pile up with people complaining and not getting their titles properly or whatever. Again, this is to me is a great example of growing too fast and not knowing how to, not understanding how I'm going to get okay to get titles in Texas, not understanding about how I'm going to get titles in, or not caring and just going, hey, I'm going to scam you anyway and I'm going to walk away a billionaire and it's not going to matter.
This is a prime example of, hey, we built the business, our investors are going to lose all of their money, but the guy and his dad who started this are going to walk, let's say they're going to make, instead of billions of dollars, they made half a billion, they made $500 after taxes and everything clean in their pocket. Well, this endeavor was worth it for it then.
And they
Like,
can live the rest of
totally
their
worth it.
lives like, we did it, we scammed everybody, but we didn't go to
But
jail.
and let me tell you what's going to happen. Me personally, I'm waiting. I'm crossing my fingers for when they go bankrupt. I'm going to leverage myself to the hills to buy the South Austin,
Carvana,
their car vending car vending
vending machine.
machine. Listen, I refuse to invest into Austin because they don't want my investment. They don't want my money, and they make that clear with their rules and laws. However, because of all these yuppie Californians moving into the city and moving into and turning it into an unlivable place. Well, these guys who have extra cars, these are some wealthier people. They have
Mm-hmm.
sports cars and stuff. I'm going to acquire the one in South Austin, pennies on the dollar, right? I'm going to acquire it, and I'm going to turn it into the coolest car storage you can find anywhere in the country. And then I'm going to make it a membership place with a clubhouse and a cigar lounge, and hey, you can come, we're park your car here, and we'll shuttle you to the airport and the whole 9 yards. That's what
Yeah,
we're gonna
and
do.
all the cars are going to be
Yeah.
Lambos, and you know what I mean, all that. Yeah, I
Yep.
get it. Store your
And
car that
all
you
the
don't drive every day here, and yeah,
yeah,
no,
all
I
the
got
cars
you.
and coffee. It's gonna be like Manhattan Classic Car, the car club of Manhattan, or something like that. I forget what it's called. But I already have a plan. Yeah, so I'm just waiting for this to go bankrupt. That building itself, my guess is no way it's under 25 million. Wouldn't you agree? Like 25 million is
Oh
not a
yeah,
crazy
yeah,
number
just
for
because of the
that.
land
Yeah,
itself and where it sits, yeah.
right. $5 million. I'm gonna buy it for 5 million. That's the
And then,
plan.
but you'll make it back in a year. You'd make it back in
Yeah.
a year. But yeah, we
Yep.
can both agree that I would be very surprised if Carvana still exists in the way it currently exists inside a year.
Right. And here's what I would say that's not unreasonable. Here's what I do think. I do think if they survive, it's because they turn themselves into a CarMax type business. And the way they're going to do that is going around finding the largest used car lots in a city and just acquiring them and just converting them into Carvana's
As a
whatever.
name. As a name.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're
They're just going to,
Carvana
because
and we
there's,
exist as a CarMax, you know what I mean,
yeah,
competitor.
competitor. Yeah.
Right.
And but listen, CarMax's entire business model is brilliant, because they're like, we don't negotiate on price, so it's much easier to come buy from us. And the guys at our dealership, they wear shorts. But they printed billions of dollars in profits. Good for them.
Well, because they did something. CarMax did more than that, and Carvana really copied that model in that we're only going to pay X dollars for a car because we
Right.
know we can sell it for Y. And that has
Right.
a built in profit margin of Z, and we know we're going to make that. And that's how they
Correct.
do it, which is
Right.
really how everybody should do it, but that kind of limits what you can make, and car dealerships don't like that, which is
Right.
again brings us to a completely different story that Danny absolutely loves because it kind of pertains to this. Did you leave
Don't
it on the
love
thing
it.
for today?
Yeah, no, it's on there if you refresh. Um, FoxBusiness.com says that
No, I
the
was talking
U.S.
about the direct to consumer thing.
Which one?
The Tesla direct to consumer story. Did you take that
Oh,
off?
I didn't put it in there.
Oh, that was something you sent to me earlier today.
Yeah,
See,
yeah,
folks,
yeah,
we're doing this live. We're messing this up. I
yeah.
want to quickly add
So
that to this story.
yeah, yeah. Let's talk about that real quick.
Because the Tesla story is
I
essentially
love this.
Tesla has been trying to figure out for years at this point how
Right.
to sell their cars, Teslas,
Direct.
directly to consumers when
Yeah.
most states, especially states like Texas, have
Correct.
laws that prohibit it, which is why General
Right.
Motors, Ford, all of these people make these vehicles, right? And then, but they have to turn around and sell them to your local. Everybody knows who their local big dealerships are, right? And a
Right.
Chevrolet here in Austin, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Everybody has that football star or that
Right.
movie star or whatever that owns the big dealership in your area, and the
Right.
reason they own them is because they're just print money, because they have to
Correct.
buy them from the manufacturer because the manufacturer can't sell them to you, and then they turn around and sell them to you for a markup. And that's the way it's been since cars were made. Well, at least
Yeah.
at past the
Mostly.
next 10, 20
So
years, right?
this is a fantastic example of crony capitalism,
Yes.
um, because these relationships. The reason it's illegal, there is no. I mean, there's a clip or there's a video from Adam Ruins Everything that kind of discusses this. There is no benefit that you can argue that the consumer gets from this relationship where it's illegal for the corporation to sell it to you
Not now.
directly.
There once was. When we were a
Well,
quote unquote smaller country, when
yeah,
I manufacture Fords in Detroit, how do I get
yeah,
enough Fords to Austin, Texas to make sure
right,
that Austin Texans are buying Ford? Well, they can't build a factory back then in
right,
Austin, Texas, so they had to figure out a way, and what that was to get investors around the country
right,
to open up car lots. Well, how do I get them to make sure it was contracts, right? Well, I don't want
right,
Ford competing with me in Austin, Texas directly
right,
because they can undercut me. So how are we going to do this? So instead of each individually dealing with that, states made those rules to
right.
come around and say,
But
no, do
but
this so that Ford can't just
who
undercut
lobbied? Yeah, right. But who lobbied the states to create those things?
the
The
billionaires that
dealer
were
did.
setting up the dealerships, right? Or
Yeah.
millionaires at
Well,
the
the
time.
wealthy. Yeah. So this story was really interesting to me that Tesla, and there's a documentary about a guy who set up the basically um, usury loans, like payday
Mm-hmm.
lenders who would go to smaller Native American tribes in Oklahoma and other states and say, "Hey, I'm going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% of my business, but I need to be headquartered on your indigenous land."
Mm-hmm.
And so what Tesla has figured out, which I love, is that if they put their direct to consumer dealers on indigenous land
In some states.
in some states, like New Mexico is one of them, our neighbors to
Right.
the west, that they can skirt a bunch of laws about direct sales because this is considered a sovereign nation within our country.
Right.
Now, I hate making this about politics again, but I think everybody should be allowed to create a sovereign nation in this country.
No,
Okay?
no, they
Right.
shouldn't. But go ahead.
Listen, currently my title is Dr. Danny Bombay, but I have no problem with Chief Bombay either. Okay? That's fine.
Look, Tesla
I'm
is
the other
trying to
kind of
figure out
Indian, but
any way to skirt these rules. Anyway, because they
right.
do
And
not want
so
in
the
any way to adopt the dealership model. They just don't want to
right.
do it.
So here's the other thing I think. Um, I think that if you got rid of all of these regulations that force dealerships and give them all the power, I don't think that you're going to see major companies get rid of dealerships. I don't think General Motors is going to be like, oh yeah, we don't. It's just going to be this fact in Chicago, New York, Dallas, Los Angeles, big cities. Yeah, they're going to end up doing something to buy out the big dealer in town.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to happen? It's going to be flagship stores. But guess what? You get 30 minutes outside of the city, they don't care anymore. It's too much infrastructure for them to deal with.
I would be
So I
really
don't think.
surprised if you see new car dealerships still existing, let's say 5 years from now. Because there's the
Yeah, I agree with
direct to
that.
consumer model when you can go, okay, all the car lots out there, y'all can be used car lots from now on, right? You can be because
Right,
it would be very difficult, as Carvana's figured out, because of the used market and how it turns over, and there's
right,
just such a wide variety to not continue to have a used car model like that, right? Go to a used car lot,
right,
there's 500 cars, you choose the ones you like for the price you like and go on, right? But as far as new cars, I think you're going to see them dwindle and dwindle as Ford, General Motors, and these other companies that are actually building these cars more and more in America and going,
right.
hey, I want to be able to sell the brand new cars. Keep being a used car
Direct.
lot. You can be a preferred used car lot. Or
Right,
we're going to give you a little bit because we're going to deliver it to your location with a bunch of other cars. And then you're going to have them sign paperwork and we're going to give you just a flat fee for that. I think you're
right,
going to see a transition in how you buy new cars, and that's already being seen because of the lack of availability of new cars, because of the
right,
chip shortage and some other manufacturing shortage things. You're
right,
already seeing where if you want, for example, right now, if you want a well, there for a while, just truck in general, right? Nobody had any. The only way you could get it was to order it directly from General Motors. You know, if you wanted a Chevy directly from General Motors and wait until one showed up, or one like it showed up, and the dealership called you and said, hey, we have one close enough. Do you want to come buy it for full price and yada yada?
right,
Or more than full price and that kind of stuff. But I think that has also caused it's given Ford, General Motors, these car manufacturers a reason that they didn't have 3 years ago to go. This is why we need to cut out the middleman. It's because these middlemen
right,
are marking up tens of thousands above what we're saying MSRP, right? But
right.
we can't control what an independent business does, right?
Correct.
So it's given them a something that they can hang their hat on and go, hey, we need to get rid of these people that are robbing people in the middle.
Right. Yeah, but and I would say that not only do I think they kind of disappear, but I do think we're going to learn that the direct model works for some things, but not other things.
Mm-hmm.
Because um, I kind of want to people are buying these electric cars, and there's a handful of dealerships that you can look at here where I live, where they have a there's one dealership that I was looking at yesterday. I was looking at a new car. I was looking at it yesterday. They had freaking 15 or 13 electric vehicles. They had a Ford F-150 Lightning. They had two Rivians, and the rest were Teslas. And I said, so you guys buy a lot of, like, you go to the auction, you buy a ton of these electric cars? And they go, nah, we give the best price in town, because he's like, that one somebody bought, they put 700 miles on the F-150 Lightning, and they try to tow something, and they lost all their charge trying to tow something because it has 7,000 pounds of towing, and the guy tried to tow his four-wheeler up to his property and had to charge for 2 hours in between. Got rid of it.
Well, yeah, I mean,
So
because they try to use it practically for what you would use a truck for. But,
yeah,
and the Rivian shouldn't be on anybody's lot because they've all been recalled, and I haven't seen an article yet that says they fixed them all. So they
yeah,
shouldn't have any Rivians on their lot. But yes, electric vehicles are now getting traded into dealerships as people buy them because they think that that's what they want, and then they have buyer's remorse for completely different
yeah,
reasons, right?
mhm,
And then they trade them in for an old fashioned car, and there is definitely a percentage of that. But Tesla is going to continue to try to figure out ways to get around the model. I think Ford and General Motors are going to do their part in trying to fix the model, right? Or work around it as well.
I think that the lobbyists for dealer groups, they were well funded. They have a big war chest, but they don't have a war chest like General Motors or Ford. And until recently, General Motors and Ford didn't have the leverage or the market appetite to build direct sales model. But that is now there's a coalition that they've coalesced. The market's now interested in direct model. They have the war chest. The dealers are hurting for various reasons. A lot of it having to do with, hey, General Motors doesn't have cars for you to sell, so you have to make money on your used cars.
And we have all these articles that say you've been taking advantage of people when the market was down, right? So they're coming at it from different angles at this right now, and I don't know if the car dealerships have the ability to fend all of these ways off.
That's what I'm saying. They've been able to fight off. They've been able to pick off very successfully, direct models when it comes to, when Fiat purchased Chrysler, they built a massive show floor in Los Angeles direct sales model where they had all of this Stellantis or the FCA cars. They got sued, and it took a couple of years, and they went out of business. But I think where this is at right now, it's going to be too much pressure because the consumer is now going to start saying, well, what? I don't want to be dealing with this. So when it's the consumer and then you have these massive conglomerates, all it takes is for Ford and General Motors to say, hey, we're going to sue the state together. Yeah. So let's say they pick the state that's going to be easiest to knock down. So let's say I don't know what the state is. I'm just throwing one out there.
Right.
Let's say they pick Georgia. And they say, okay, we're going to knock down Georgia. Well, that creates what's called precedents. So they go to Texas and they do the exact same lawsuit. And they say, well, in Florida, this judge said that this was perfectly whatever. It's not consumer whatever, consumer friendly. And so then eventually all 50 states end up getting knocked down. And that's where I think we're going to be in the next 5 years.
Or 48 of them. Right. You know what I mean? And 2 of them, you can't do it. But there's all kinds of rules out there that 40-something states work one way and 6 work a different. You know what I mean? So they don't even have to have them all. Right?
Right.
Now, they want Texas because obviously Texas is a huge car market, but I'm just saying that they could make plenty of money off of 37 other states or 40, you know what I mean?
Right.
40 other states or whatever it is. And if they can, they will. And it will hurt everybody because, of the way it works. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because it's kind of part of the Carvana thing and the way the automotive buy and sell industry is headed. So I think we've got at least one more story here, Danny. The Powerball jackpot winner.
So the day before, what I've been told is the most important election of our lifetime. I've heard that for 25 years now, so I don't care anymore.
Each one's more important than the next, I guess.
The government runs a lottery system, and the largest lottery in American history was... we were told $1.9 billion. It turns out it ended up around 2.1 at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, 2.04. So just over $2 billion.
Yeah, $2 billion. And I think that the lump sum comes out to a little under $1 billion. So what I found fascinating, first of all, was I walked into my local gas station and on Monday, and I bought a ticket. And I walked out, and then I went home, and then realized that the guy sold me a ticket for today, and I was like, I didn't even know that was possible. I didn't even know you could sell a ticket in advance of a different draw. You know what I'm saying? I didn't go back in there and I want to go back in there and curb stomp this kid because I think he just screwed me out of $2 billion.
Well, probably. Did you check your numbers toward what they were? It
doesn't matter because the draw is for today. The ticket that they sold me is for today.
I cannot tell you the last time I bought a lottery ticket. It's been at least a decade. Yeah. Now, my wife, every now and then, when they get big like this, will go, well, I bought, you know what I mean, a lottery ticket or whatever. I'm like, whatever. But I can't tell you the last time I bought a lottery ticket. But hey.
Listen, I stand by this. Lottery tickets are called the poor tax for a reason. They appeal to poor people who can't do math. And you hate when people are getting ripped off.
I do.
This is them getting ripped off.
In the same way that cigarettes, tobacco, right, and all these other things, yes,
No,
you are
cigarettes at
correct.
least make you happy. Cigarettes at least make you happy. Okay. The lottery is the government saying that, there's I forget what movie it was.
You give me $1 and I hand you 50 cents. Like, that is what the lottery is.
Yeah. So Ewan McGregor was in a film. I forget what it's called. Maybe it was called The Island, I think, where it's like wealthy, super wealthy people have clones, but their clones have to go live lives or something because that's how the science works.
Yeah. That they're raising all the clones in this center where they think it's like post-apocalyptic or something like that.
And you can't go outside because the air will kill you, that kind of thing. And it turned out they had done this entire thing before, and they realized if that people don't have something to live for, that these clones, it was just so that they could harvest, like wealthy people could harvest organs, basically. But in this movie, they realized if we don't have a lottery, that eventually everybody thinks, okay, I'm just going to keep working and my number's going to come up. That the clones would they would have bad organs or something for the billionaires.
Well, they would just die off. Human beings without a purpose just don't survive. It's the way we're wired.
Correct. So they realized that so they would have this lottery system. They go, man, did you hear so and so won the lottery, and they get to leave. And it was just that the person needed the billionaire needed a heart. So they're like,
look, people need hope. People need hope.
Yeah,
and they will pay for it in the way, in this case, of the lottery.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is this is a scam. But what ended up happening in the biggest lottery jackpot in American history, they couldn't draw it on time because they had security issues. Hey, pal, just throwing this out there. Your whole job is pulling lottery numbers. Okay? That's all you do.
Danny's linking this to some conspiracy theory that, you know what I mean, Nate?
Well, here's what I think. I think a Republican one. So clearly, that's fine.
Get out of here!
I'm kidding.
Get out of here!
That was a joke. That was a joke. We're live the day after an election, and everybody's crying, and that makes me happy. Your tears are give me strength. So I'm making some jokes here, but it's to me it was when I first of all pissed that I didn't get my ticket. And I would have never spent $10. I bought 5 freaking tickets because it was $2 billion. I would have never done that for $20 million. That's not the point, though. The point is, it got delayed for security reasons, and I think that's hilarious.
Back in the mid '90s, there was still no lottery here in Texas back then. There were no scratch offs either back in Texas back then. And
no what?
There was no scratch offs, like, you know what I mean?
Okay,
Texas lottery or any of that stuff. There's no lottery. The closest state that was part of the mega lottery or whatever, the several state lottery, was Louisiana.
Mega Millions.
Right? The Mega Millions or whatever it was. And back in the mid 90s, I have no idea what it got up to. It got up to I'm sure at the time it was probably the largest amount ever or whatever.
Right.
And of course, I was working at Kmart back then, when Kmart was Kmart, before it started going downhill. And because of that, basically everybody at work got together and just shoveled money together. And then me and a buddy of mine that I also worked with at the time drove from Dallas, Texas to Shreveport, Louisiana, drove across the border into Louisiana, and then bought that many tickets. And guess what? We weren't the only ones doing that. The line was massive of people crossing over the border into Louisiana, buying these tickets, and then just take them back. Now, of course, we won jack not, but still, it was what we were doing at the time. Look, my favorite part of this story, again, every week I try to find something that is a story that is not about the story, but it makes me happy. In this case, I figured out something I didn't know about the lottery, which I think is really cool. That in this case, and I guess it's this way in the lottery, I know what you're going to say. The retailer, right? Yeah, the retail store, the retailer, the gas station that sold the winning lottery ticket.
They get money too.
And in this case, this guy working at probably the owner of the gas station, probably working that night, right, of the gas station, because that's the way it works, right? The owner of that gas station probably sold this ticket to this person, gets a check for $1 million just for
Yeah.
selling the winning lottery ticket.
Yeah, that is so. What is interesting is where I used to live, there was a small family-owned gas station. So when I would buy lottery tickets, I would make a point of it's kind of out of my way, but I would make a point to go there because I thought, I don't care if Quick Trip or
Yeah.
Speedway gets. I don't care if they do. And I'm not some socialist hippie, but
This was
I'd much
called
rather.
Joe's Service Center. It's
Yeah.
Joe. It's Joe. You can tell by the looking at this guy that this guy was running that cash register. This is Joe's place.
Yeah. I think he's a Syrian immigrant, so I doubt his name's actually Joe, but
I
it
don't
stands.
care.
What you said stands. But the point is, he ended up making $1 million. And so that I would go, I'm not some sort of socialist, but hey, man, if my actions have a an accidental ripple effect of getting somebody millions of dollars, geez, let's do it. Especially if those millions of dollars are from the government. Couldn't be happier.
Well, we don't know who
So,
the billionaire is, and really they're not a
no.
billionaire there because after taxes and yada yadas,
Hey,
they're going to end
you're
up
still
with
going to
$600
have
or $700 million, right? Which
no,
is
it's
still
they're saying it's 900. Well, yeah. But hey, after if you take the lump sum and then you pay the taxes on the lump sum,
Mhm.
you're still wealthier than Kanye West. So
That's a great way to look at it. So yeah, hopefully they're doing what you should do if you win the lottery, which is before you
right,
even go and get the ticket, claim the ticket, you hire a lawyer, you hire a couple of different
right.
people, you know what I mean, and do
Hmm.
things right from the get go.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's what they're
Now,
doing, which is what I would do.
right. So I have been prepared for this scenario for about 2 years now. I have a trust. I have an LLC set up in a non-piercing state. That LLC controls the trust in South Dakota, which again is a non-piercing state. Um, and then I have a handful of attorneys that I've already picked out, ready to go. And then I have two corporations, one in Belize, one in the Seychelles. And then you just create a never-ending loop of capital, so you never
I
pay
don't think
taxes
you
on
should be
anything.
doing that on a live episode, just telling everybody how you're doing things. But hey, it's your
It's not
business. You do with
illegal.
it what you want, right?
It's not. I didn't do anything that's illegal. I set up a handful of entities. If they end up, by God's grace, if they end up becoming useful to me for one reason or another, all I did was perfectly legal. So
Well, I'll tell you the legal definition in my book. I'll tell you the same thing. I'll tell you live what I tell my children. You have $0. So you don't have to worry about a thing. You have $0, so you don't have to worry about a thing. I think that's all we got today, Danny. Did we miss
yep,
anything? We've been out this
I
for a
don't think we did.
while. Hopefully we can turn around and our next show will be on Friday, you think?
No, I can't do it on Friday. I'll explain.
Okay, so maybe we can get a weekend episode in this
Yep.
weekend.
Veterans Day, the place that I rent to do these episodes, they're closed on Veterans Day.
Okay.
So,
all right, then maybe if not this weekend, then definitely on Monday. Folks, we
yep,
appreciate you. We'll see you next time around. Look forward to
that's right.
seeing you, soon.
Yep. Bye.
And we're good.
Okay. I changed all the logos, and I'm really happy that you made me do the APM logo and hire somebody on Fiverr. I'm glad that we did that because I'm so much happier with that with the logo.
I'm happy
So,
that you're happy.
do you like it though, or are you just whatever? You're happy that I'm happy.
No, both. I mean,
Okay.
I'm happy with it. Like it, to me, it looks. We need to fix the. We need to. We need to come up with a different email. I mean, we can use the Market Fire email if we want, but
Okay.
we need to have an email address that the APM stuff is going to.
Yeah,
You know what I
Allpod
mean?
Media Gmail. I already have that.
But yeah, the APM, I like the way and I've said this a couple of times, and I guess you really like the blue. I like the original red you had on the APM.
Okay. The only
That
reason I
that
changed
original
it.
bright red. I don't know what it was about that bright red and white.
Okay.
It just really looks sleek. to me.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay,
if it
we
just
can do
doesn't
that.
look right in red and you want to keep it this blue, I'm fine with that. But I liked the pop of, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? That
So
red.
so the only reason I changed it to the blue was because at some point we had talked about